The walls of the map room bear witness to whispers of strategy that altered the course of history. Yet in their silence, the echoes of its past remain ever present. This hallowed space, tucked away in a basement of one of the most iconic buildings in the world, holds within its confines the very essence of leadership under pressure. It stands as a solemn reminder of the burdens carried by those who once walked its floors. Each decision weighed heavily, intertwining triumphs and tragedies into the fabric of time. Welcome to Ghost Stories of the Battles, where we unravel the tales best left untold. Tonight, we explore the map room, a seemingly mundane setting, transformed into a crucible of monumental decisions. The air hangs thick with the specters of those who strategized here during one of history's darkest epochs, World War II. This room served as the nerve center for military strategy, a place where maps and machines became instruments of both policy and peril. As leaders huddled together, their voices were often accompanied by the ominous backdrop of warfare, strategy whispering through the heavy air, while fate loomed just beyond each decision. In this somber sanctuary, history was not just made, it was etched into the very walls that surround us, holding the ghosts of those former leaders captive in the shadows. With each flicker of the overhead lights, one might imagine the solemn figures of presidents and generals, their brows furrowed with doubt as they charted the fates of nations. Each map that adorned the walls is a testament to plans devised, lives lost, and sacrifices made, stories of hope and resignation intermingled in an eternal dance. This is a place where the past bleeds into the present, connecting those who have come before with the realities that haunt us now. As we delve deeper into this realm of history steeped in solemnity, we set foot on a journey through the haunting tales of those who walked these very floors. Our story begins with a contemporary historian, drawn to the map room not just for its artifacts, but for the weighty truths that linger like restless spirits. Tasked with cataloging the remnants of a compelling past, they stand on the precipice of a revelation that promises to unveil layers of human experience etched into the room's very fabric. What does it mean to confront history, especially when ensconced in a space burdened with the legacies of leadership? This historian will soon discover that their dedication to the past may uncover more than artifacts. It may awaken the restless echoes of decisions long made, and in that discovery, they might just come face to face with the ghosts of history itself. Join me as we peel back the layers of time and experience in The Weight of History, to witness the merging of past and present in a world where the shadows of those who dared to lead still dwell, longing to share their stories with those willing to listen. The map room, with its sterile walls adorned with maps that once guided the fate of nations, bore an atmosphere thick with historic kind of existence that hung suspended in each breath. Michael Perley's, a contemporary historian, stepped into the dimly lit space, his senses immediately alert. The year was 2023, but he could feel the shadows of past operators looming about him, heavy with authority and apprehension. As he settled into an old militaristic desk, his heart sank under the memories woven into the very fabric of the place. Curiosity reached out to him like a fog enveloping early morning streets, and for a moment, he felt a connection, an invisible thread linking him to the giants who had once strategized here during the turbulent days of World War II. The basement's light flickered weakly, hinting at both the age of the structure and the secrets it held. Whispers hovered just out of reach, fading in and out like distant echoes of long-lost conversations. But the oppressive atmosphere was a constant reminder of the burdens these historical figures bore, decisions that rippled through time, shaping futures yet unseen. As he began cataloging the stacked files filled with documents and artifacts, an unsettling pressure wrapped around him, a sensation that seemed almost suffocating. It felt as if the burdens carried by those who trod these floors before him were not only confined in the pages of history, but rooted, buried deep within the room itself. Each map unfurled before him narrated tales of triumph and tragedy, linked hearts and severed bonds of unity dissolved in the pursuit of victory that cost thousands their lives. Michael inhaled deeply, attempting to compartmentalize the weight pressing on his chest. Yet there was no escaping the awareness that here, within these very walls, sacrifices were made and lives altered in the name of a greater good. With determination, he lifted the first file, feeling the chill of forgotten decisions pricking at him like a cold draft sneaking through an unsealed window. The first folder creaked open, revealing a collection of letters penned by Franklin Delano Roosevelt himself, filled with a mixture of hope and trepidation. He read through the meticulous cursive, absorbing words reflecting the weight of command, as they detailed the battles fought not only on foreign shores, but within the confines of his mind. The letters captured a blend of optimism and frustration, revealing a man steeped in the complexities of leadership during a time of great peril. One letter drew his attention. It expressed doubt about the Allies' ability to hold Italy, concurrent with an almost desperate plea for unity among the joint forces. Michael flipped through pages, finding corresponding replies from the naval aide. These correspondence fragments chronicled arguments and differences in military approach, revealing faces behind the uniforms, contrasting visions that echoed down hallways through time. As the historian continued through the documents, it felt as if the room itself shifted around him, shadows lengthening as the dark weight of unresolved tension permeated the air. He cast a glance over his shoulder, a mixture of curiosity and anxiety rising within him. The flickering light seemed to play tricks on his eyes, but he dismissed it, focusing instead on the files before him. The deeper he delved, the more he felt enveloped by the emerging sense of dread. The letters were more than mere correspondences. They were echoes of conversations alive in the air, filled with fear, uncertainty, and dashed hopes, very essence of leadership in dire times. He shivered, wishing for warmth that the space would not yield. The palpable discomfort grew heavier, as if the shadows themselves were attuned to his presence, darting quietly but insistently behind him. Michael occasionally looked up from his task to glimpse fleeting shadows at the periphery of the flickering light. It was an absurd notion, shadows in a room shortly deserted, but they felt unusually sharp and alive, brushing ever so slightly against his awareness. The sensation unsettled him further, the dissonance of past and present colliding in this sacred chamber steeped in history and conflict. Hours slid by like minutes as the historian grappled with the growing tension, each document seemingly beckoning him further into the past. He could feel the whispers of leaders echoing in his ears, decisions lamented, sacrifices unending. The continuity of leadership weighed against the backdrop of humanity's ceaseless march through chaos. Then he uncovered a handwritten note embedded within the correspondence. It was stained and crumpled, obviously pulled hastily from the desk of the illustrious commander-in-chief. A bitter pang gripped his heart as he read Roosevelt's words of despair over the mounting casualties. It was a stark reminder of the lives at stake, human cost behind every decision. Leadership is a cruel burden, he had written. It rests no lighter over time. The weight of it presses upon my soul, heavy as the world itself. The air grew cold as the historian absorbed the essence of the note. The silence was suffocating, punctuated only by the ticking clock, a reminder that time waits for no one, not even for the great and powerful. Michael could barely feel his fingers anymore, the chill edging out the remnants of warmth, as though he were merely a ghost in the room, just another lingering shadow bound to those who had once occupied this sacred space. His heart raced in synchrony with the mounting anxiety consuming him. Suddenly, an icy chill swept through the map room, and he could have sworn he felt a presence behind him. A whisper brushed the nape of his neck like a sigh of resignation. Michael involuntarily recoiled. The hair on his arm stood on end. He turned, half expecting to see another historian or maybe a staff member, but found only the cold, empty room glaring back at him, silent yet filled with the weight of history. Was he losing his grip on reality? Feeling a surge of dread, he recalled the countless leaders who had once stood where he was, shrouded in the harsh light of halftime decisions. Not one had escaped unscathed. They had all in some way been trapped by their choice wrestling with phantoms, much as he now was. The shadows deepened, and Michael fought against a rush of sorrow threatening to envelop him. These voices were not merely echoes. They were a cacophony of all those who had trodden these grounds, weighted by the burdens borne through their arduous leadership. As he plowed through the file drawers, the air became even more oppressive. With each document discovered, Michael sensed a deepening connection to the hopes and fears of those who had come before. Did they have regrets? Did their hearts ache at the lives lost? He imagined FDR pacing these same floors, quelling doubt while struggling to find clarity in chaos. Suddenly, the experience morphed into something surreal, an almost zealous quest to honor these ghosts by giving them a voice, to bestow the past its due recognition. And then, out of the corner of his eye, he glimpsed it again, a shadow flickering erratically by the door, as if beckoning him. Ignoring the rising tide of anxiety that accompanied it, he pushed on, determined to continue sifting through the remnants of secrets buried inside the archived papers. But as he moved to close another file, an unexpected force slammed the drawer shut, sending a jarring vibration through the desk upon which he worked. The tremor shook some dust loose from the ceiling overhead, dropping particles like fading dreams around him. Michael recoiled slightly, heart racing, glancing about the room, searching for the source of the disturbance. "Who?" he began, voice lost to the hallways of time, lost in the reverberations of the past. For a fleeting moment, he thought he caught a glimpse of a figure, half shrouded in the shadows, a figure he recognized from dusty old photographs of Roosevelt himself, standing in the map room, deep in thought. The apparition seemed to gesture, an ephemeral guide trapped between dimensions. With a shudder, he realized he was not alone in the chamber. History itself had awoken. With renewed resolve steeling his heart, Michael took a deep breath, grounding himself in the reality of existence, the specters of leadership palpable all around him. The interactions he'd uncovered, the whispers of doubts, the sacrifices, the cries of the fallen, pushed him toward purpose. The shadows swirling about ought to be honored, their stories unveiled, lives acknowledged. This realization ignited a flame of commitment within him that outweighed the chilly fear. The choice was no longer purely academic. His role was to share the narratives entwined within these walls, honoring the shadows that influenced destinies far beyond their control. He understood the gravity embedded in these decisions, the echoes reverberating through time that lingered, seeking illumination even while haunting the chambers. Michael took one last glance around the room, absorbing the essence of lives lost, dreams dashed, and yet flickers of hope, understanding that the specters present within these walls existed not merely to haunt but to remind and teach. As he emerged from the heavy weight of the past, clarity washed over him. History could reshape through acknowledgement, through remembrance. It was a commitment to vow to honor the weight of the stories that lay trapped within the confines of the map room, emanating endlessly through time. The historian stood at the threshold of his purpose, shaking off the remnants of despair. Shadows quieted, lending respect to his resolve as he stepped from the throes of those who had charted the course through challenges unimaginable. Empowered by his engagement with the past, Michael left the map room carrying its legacy forward, now a vessel for the echoing tales that demanded to be told. Not everything could be changed. History had etched itself into the very structures of time. But in acknowledging the complexitous multitude of voices trapped in the silence could share their sorrows and their victories, shining light on truths too often left in the dark. The heavy burden of history transformed, morphed into a promise reverberating from heart to heart, calling those in the present to recognize their link to the past, lingering here among the ghosts of leaders who had come before. The walls would witness their stories anew through his commitment, a testament to pulses of life, fervent dreams, and the harrowing consequences of leadership endured in the shadows. With the historians' resolve to honor the past solidified, we shift back in time to the war-torn year of 1944, where urgency and dread weave through the fabric of leadership under immense pressure. The dark shadows of that year whispering tales of commitment and sacrifice, where decisions could change the tide of history, perhaps forever. The sun had barely crested the horizon on June 6, 1944, as the White House stirred to life under a blanket of heavy anticipation. Inside the map room, the air felt thick, a palpable tension hung, vibrating with the urgency of the day ahead. A naval aide named Thomas Bentley had arrived early, his uniform crisp and his mind racing with the multitude of tasks laid before him. His role was clear: oversee communications as the nation's leaders embarked on an unprecedented invasion to free Europe from the grasp of tyranny. It was the moment history seemed to hold its breath, and with each passing minute, Bentley could feel the intangible weight of sacrifices both made and yet to come. The sound of distant bombers thrummed through the air, a constant reminder that at that very moment, brave souls were storming the beaches of Normandy, fates intertwining in ways yet unseen. As Bentley shuffled through the day's preparations, he could not shake the uneasy feeling that the very room around him was alive, echoing the whispers of the past. The maps hung on the walls, detailed accounts of strategic locations, were more than mere paper and ink. They were the paths to glory, blood, and loss. The dim light cast flickering shadows that danced over the table laden with telegrams and charts, mirroring the chaos brewing beyond the map room. Little did he know, as willing as he was, the room harbored secrets that would soon unravel, changing him irrevocably. The steady tapping of Bentley's fingers against his desk created a rhythm, almost like an incantation to summon the spirits of the past. He rifled through the carefully categorized documents and maps, each bearing the fingerprints of history. But as the morning wore on and the tension mounted, so too did the peculiar events unfolding around him. It began subtly. A pin on one of the maps seemed to shift, moving just out of his line of sight. Bentley inhaled sharply, convinced the early hour had heightened his senses. But when he looked again, the pin was inexplicably back in its original place. His heart raced as he rationalized it, as a mere figment of fatigue, a trick of light perhaps. Yet as reports of the landings flooded in, the tension ballooned, leading to something altogether more unsettling. It started with a soft, rustling sound near the wall. Bentley turned towards the source, eyes narrowing. There were no drafty windows, and the room had been sealed tight for security. Yet the sound persisted, a gentle whisper that seemed to call his attention. He stepped closer to the maps, feeling the cool surface beneath his fingers, and before he knew it, he was leaning over the table, poring over the intricate lines detailing troop movements. That was when it happened. The same bright red symbol marking a crucial landing zone seemed to slide away from where it should have stayed anchored. Bentley's breath caught in his throat. The pin wobbled alarmingly, then settled in an entirely different position, suggesting a different approach altogether. Duke of Normandy Mark IV, he muttered under his breath, feeling both incredulous and somewhat entranced. Ghostly fingers could not be reaching for a map pin. Yet here it was, moving as if guided by unseen forces. Bentley looked around the room, No one else was present, but he could hear them voices whispering strategies, old leaders of the past. Drawn to the map's shift, he found himself emerging into a pocket of time. D-Day, he whispered, almost reverently. The air felt heavier, charged with the resonance of countless decisions made in moments like these. The clicking noise intensified, and to Bentley's horror, other pins began to tremble and glide across the map, suggestions for altering battle plans materializing before his very eyes. "Change it," an echoing voice commanded, a voice that he recognized as that of President Franklin D. Roosevelt mingled with the tones of General Eisenhower. The aide's heart raced, and he staggered back, shaking his head to dispel the visions. But the whispers grew louder, intertwining with the steady roar of aircraft overhead, reverberating through the very bones of the map room itself. What if, Bentley thought, before being struck by an almost overwhelming wave of urgency. The messages pouring in were shrouded in uncertainty. Each decision could tip the balance and determine the fate of thousands. In that moment, he was beset with doubt. Was he to intervene with the will of history? What rested upon the choices encoded in these maps? Was he merely an observer, or did he possess the power to influence this crucial moment? With the sounds of war echoing in the backdrop, Bentley wrestled with the temptation to rearrange the pins into what he believed to be a more advantageous strategy. If he changed their positions, perhaps lives could be saved. Perhaps the outcomes would shift in favor of the Allies. The ghosts of 100 years of leadership across these same strategic outlines swirled around him, lifting his moral dilemma into the light. How easy it was to chart paths while safely ensconced within the walls of power. Yet he knew these decisions had the weight of blood behind them, an old axiom whispering reminders of the price of leadership. "Do you dare to try?" Another voice echoed, this time a low rumble from a field commander, one whose failed decisions lingered in the shadows. This was the voice that prompted Bentley to reconsider the gravitational force of leadership that weighed both heavy and light. The ghostly whispers reached a fever pitch as Bentley leaned over the map, eyes narrowed in concentration. The nature of war was not merely a game of chess. It was a crucible that forged destinies. His heart raced as visions of brave men charging the beaches waved like ghosts through his mind. Would he dare tamper with their fate? Could one pin change the tide of war? Suddenly, the atmosphere in the room shifted. Against lights flickered ominously as the sound of boots echoed through the floor. Bentley spun around, caught off guard, but the room remained empty, save for the oppressive silence itself. He returned his gaze to the mess of maps before him, and without quite knowing how he came to it, he began to rearrange the pin swiftly, decisively. As he repositioned each pin, visions of fallen soldiers filled his mind. Their faces emerged unbidden, sacrifice etching itself deep into his heart. "I am not changing history," he whispered fiercely to himself, pressing down on the pin one last time as it clicked into place. "I am saving lives." But in stealing that moment, Bentley felt an ancient brushing against his consciousness. Ghostly echoes of whispered battle plans faded almost imperceptibly, snatched silently into the void that surrounded him. In that electric moment, Bentley understood with bone-deep clarity that whatever choices he made would ripen into consequences far beyond his grasp. Just as he completed the last adjustment, an overhead light flickered yet again, plunging the room into shadow. Then came a thunderous crash, ears splitting amidst the resonance of time itself colliding into the present. Hand on heart, he faltered, wondering if he'd altered history not just through relocation of pins, but in shifting spiritual energies weaving through the room, forever seeking resolution. Lost in thought and surrounded by shadows, he could hear the somber, spirited voices of those who had passed, the weight of their histories swirling and merging with the air he breathed. War was chaos, But here, in the map room, it was all illuminated, laid bare amidst echoes of lost decisions. Then came the telegram. Bentley rushed to the radio, the frenetic energy mounting as messages poured in. The first report emerged on the thick sheet of telegraph paper, fluttering in the breeze of excitement that he felt surging through the room. The battle was waged, the invasion was on. The maps were alive with new narratives, tales yet to be written. But in the whirlwind of triumph and trepidation, one thing became painfully clear. Bentley looked at the maps that bore the burdens of countless lives and found himself not just a witness, but a keeper of the truth, the weight of loss, forever tied to the decisions culled in moments just like this. As the realization sank in, he whispered a silent vow to honor those whose stories were entwined within the fabric of these walls. As the echoes of war played out in the map room, Bentley realized he stood on the precipice of history itself. The shadows of leaders passed, their spirits forever entwined with the decisions made in this hallowed space, had guided him to the realization that leadership was never easy, nor should it be taken lightly. With the urgency of the day wrapping around him, Bentley steeled himself for the onslaught of news that flooded in, reports of triumph and tragedy intertwining. Seeking to sketch the broader strokes of the battle, he would carry forth the legacy of those who had guided these decisions with clarity, with heart, and perhaps with a touch of spectral wisdom. Now his own burdens, though heavy, were illuminated with purpose. The shadows of leadership remained a haunting presence, forever marking this space as the epicenter of hopes and dreams. Victories and losses rolled into one relentless tide. As he prepared to report back up the chain, Bentley knew it was time to step away from the pins and charts, ready to embrace a future echoing with the lessons whispered from beyond. With that, the air shifted once more, carrying with it the weight of the past and the promise of the future, a pulsing reminder that whatever happened next, the spirit of the map room would continue to resonate through history, forever a guardian of its secrets. The somber air of the map room in early April 1945 held an intangible weight, pressing against the very fabric of history. Dusk cast elongated shadows across dimly lit walls, darkening the outlines of the maps that had once been the foundation of national strategies and wartime deliberations. Now, though the room maintained a facade of silence, it thrummed with the echoes of its past. In an almost reverent stillness, a junior officer named Jacob Mercer sat at a table littered with remnants of a bygone era, scraps of paper, hastily scrawled notes, and the haunting presence of unfulfilled destiny. FDR was gone, the beacon in the fraught landscape of global turmoil extinguished. As Jacob rifled through the documents, he couldn't shake the feeling that he should be out there, among the troops, men and women engaged fiercely in a battle for survival rather than brooding in this mausoleum of decisions. Instead, here he was, alone, wrapped uncomfortably in the silken threads of grief and anxiety. He pressed his fingers against the cool surface of a map, tracing lines drawn in a time when ambitions were alive and fates were still being carved. The air thickened further, and the whispers of history crept back around him. He shuddered, unsure if it was the chill of apprehension or something more, something almost electric. Jacob glanced anxiously around the dimly lit room, noting the way shadows danced along the walls, impartial witnesses to the turmoil that had unfolded within this very bunker. Absorbed in contemplation, Jacob lost himself in the maps, the very tools that had charted moments of triumph and despair. Each color, each marking told of sacrifices made and choices that must have weighed heavy on the hearts of those who dared to lead in such uncertain times. It was here, he reminded himself, where decisions were made that would alter the course of nations. Suddenly, the room felt alive, as if it sensed his presence. The maps began to shift and undulate under his gaze. They were not just static images, but rather living documents, perhaps responding to the urgency of conflict that swirled outside these walls. He blinked and leaned closer. Could it be possible? Jacob reached for a map detailing the Western Front, its lines representing the complex movements of troops and supplies. As he ran his fingers over the ink, he swore he could hear murmured conversations wafting through the air, a familiar voice, firm yet laden with uncertainty. Franklin D. Roosevelt. Can we afford to lose more lives? The weight of this decision, the voice faded again, leaving Jacob submerged in an overwhelming sense of nostalgia. He felt the urge to kneel before the map, to plead, as if a prayer could call back those stalwart leaders who crafted those strategies with their very existence on the line. He walked toward the communicating machine, a cryptic device of levers and dials that had once clamored with telegraphed messages back and forth, conveying life-altering information on the war. The apparatus remained eerily still. Jacob reached out, his fingers grazing its surface. In that moment, the shadows began to caper again, and he felt the air vibrate with the pulse of history. He was overwhelmed by visions of past leaders and their fraught dialogue, brow-furrowed faces, reflecting the anguish of choice before them. He could hear garbled fragments of discussion words marked by despair and duty wafting through the air, as if spirits worked to reclaim their long-lost narratives. What decisions had they made here that might have resonated through time? And what consequences had played out on the battlefield because of it? The maps quivered beneath his fingertips as Jacob processed these spectral encounters. He peered closely and saw them more clearly now, the outlines of strategies updating in real-time, new incursion points, numbers that hinted at great victories and grim setbacks. The dread of uncertainty crept over him as he understood the enormity of leadership. It was not mere strategy, but the very lives of the citizens, soldiers, and families tethered to these decisions. Suddenly, with each pulse of energy that coursed through the room, Jacob could perceive the looming figures of FDR and his generals. They loomed as shadows, tentatively bound to the weight of choices made long ago. Faced with their spectral presence, Jacob's shudder-read their focus was not on past decisions, but rather on the implications of the choices to come, registering his plight and recognizing the invisible threads that linked them to future generations. As visions coalesced into poignant clarity, Jacob stumbled backward. No more lives, he suddenly shouted, fighting against the oppressive weight of those unfulfilled expectations. The room was still now. Please, I can't carry this alone, he whispered. In an expansive swirl of light and shadow, the maps reverted to their static forms, and the shadows receded into an echo. He stood in a trance, trembling, staring blankly at the instruments of power he could hardly fathom. The tragic incompleteness of history knotted in his chest, and he felt the urgency to honor the past in order to understand the future. As the first rays of dawn filtered through the small windows of the map room, Jacob found himself seated in the silence, surrounded by the ghosts of leaders. Though they never physically stepped back into the world, their lessons fervently echoed within him. The weight of their decisions did not rest solely on their shoulders. It had transcended time. It now resided within him. The metallic clinking of deputies and leaders filled his mind, and with it, the acceptance of one irrevocable truth. He could not shift the past, nor could he take back decisions made in moments of desperation. But he could share their burdens, carry their lessons forward. In recognizing their struggle, he would forge new pathways alongside their spirits, echoing their fears and hopes for those who walked ahead. With newfound resolve, Jacob took a deep breath, allowing the fresh energy of the morning to invigorate him. As he exited the map room, the air seemed lighter, infused with a melody of futures, yet unwritten a blend of choices still to be made. Some would echo honorably, while others would fade into whispered regrets. All were part of the intricate tapestry of leadership, one defined by the shadows of those who had come before and paved the way for those to come. The map room's secrets remained alive, enshrined in the minds of those who dared to listen. Jacob felt its transient power as he prepared to share what he witnessed, knowing that histories must never be buried but instead celebrated and pondered anew in every generation. As he stepped out, he could sense the lingering might of the map room, a sanctuary for lost stories, beckoning the curious to discover the weight of their legacies. Rebecca Hughes adjusted the strap of her messenger bag as she eased the heavy oak door of the map room closed behind her. The door clicked softly, sealing her inside the silence, a silence thick with history. She had dreamed of stepping into this iconic space, lured not just by the promise of artifacts, but by the unyielding pull of the unknown. This after-hours expedition felt exhilarating, a thrilling chase after shadows. The air was cool and crisp, tinged with the faint scent of aged paper and wax. Under the soft glow of her flashlight, the room revealed itself-long tables strewn with maps, filing cabinets burdened with history, and walls adorned with the lingering traces of decisions that shaped the course of nations. Rebecca took a deep breath, feeling an electric buzz beneath her skin. She always felt the past echoing in places steeped in time, but here, the resonance was almost corporeal. It beckoned her, like a whisper coaxing secrets from the darkness. As she set her equipment, a voice recorder, camera, and notepad in the central table, a sudden chill swept through the map room, raising goosebumps on her arms. Expectation hung palpably in the air, as if the room were on the brink of revealing something crucial. "Okay," she whispered to herself, heart racing. "Let's see what stories you have to tell." With a nervous smile and an adrenaline rush coursing through her, she hit record and spoke her first words into the ominous quiet, unaware of the shadows that stirred, waiting for her to venture deeper into their realm. The initial silence enveloped her, amplifying the sound of her own breathing. She started surveying the maps on the walls, each one an expanse of ink and history. They told tales of strategy and sacrifice, a cartographer's labyrinth of decisions that had influenced lives across the globe during the darkest hours of history. "These maps are more than just ink on paper," she noted into the recorder, her voice tinged with reverence. "They are the crystallization of moments when the world teetered on the brink of chaos." She moved closer to one large map detailing the Allied invasion plans. The pins, some already in place, waited for more to be moved, as if waiting for an unseen hand to chart a new course. Then, something peculiar happened as a cool breeze gusted, slipping through the cracks of the closed windows. The temperature dropped sharply, making Rebecca shiver. Shadows flickered at the edge of her vision. She turned abruptly, but the room remained empty, still save for the dust motes dancing in her flashlight's beam. With her pulse quickening, she continued her research, flipping through folders and documents, many yellowed and crumbling, all attesting to the burdens carried by those in leadership roles. Letters penned by hands long since gone spilled forth, infused with emotion and fear. FDR's distinct handwriting sketched words of resolve, but also touched on the anxieties that haunted him, whether they would prevail, the lives lost, and the countless decisions weighing upon his conscience. As she read on, a vision began to form. She could almost see the shadows of men in suits gathered around tables, their faces etched with determination and desperation, voices rising and falling with the cadence of urgency and hope. The room pulsated with this energy, and Rebecca felt herself pulled into their world, a world where decisions were made as lives hung in the balance. With each turned page, she felt something stirring within the very fabric of the room. The whispers of ghosts danced around her, faint but undeniably present, as if they echoed the regrets and aspirations of leaders long past. One letter gripped her: FDR's correspondence with his military aides, filled with doubts of making the right choices. The weight of history felt tangible, every word a chain that bound her to the spirits of those who once breathed life into this space. In a sudden moment of clarity, as she sifted through the papers, she caught sight of a dark shape out of the corner of her eye. She turned sharply, but whatever it was slipped away, leaving her heart thudding in her chest. The air was electric with something unnameable, and a shiver of anticipation danced along her spine. Then, without warning, the quiet was shattered. A low, resonant thrum began to vibrate in the air. It felt almost like a ghostly murmur reverberating off the walls. Could it be her imagination? Was the weight of her task bringing forth these sounds? Each syllable was indistinguishable, a nebulous collection of past conversations that buzzed like an electronic hum. She turned off her flashlight, desperate to listen close, heart racing. "Forget us," an echo whispered, almost a plea. The voices surged, many phrases overlapping, creating a tapestry of sorrow and urgency. "Remember us, honor our burdens," they were tumultuous recollections of military strategy, the pain of loss, and the heavy footsteps of leaders who had wrestled with their choices. Rebecca's heart ached, haunted not just by the history she unearthed but by the palpable reminder of their sacrifices, of lives that seemed to slip away into the silence of time. It was as if the very essence of their lives still lingered, entwined with her own, compelling her to heed their stories. Suddenly, she felt a wave of collective memory hitting her like a tide. Distant voices of leaders echoed her thoughts, and with an intensity that left her breathless, she realized she could hear them define the uncertainties of command, decisions made on the cusp of nightfall, paths that would change destinies but also irrevocably claim souls. Determined not to succumb to fear, Rebecca steadied herself and utilized her recorder to capture the ethereal whispers, her hands trembling slightly as she pressed the button. "If you are here, if you have something to say, tell me," she implored softly, her breath a mere whisper against the unyielding silence that followed. The temperature dropped further, and the phantom seemed to swirl closer. A fog enveloped her, shadows coalescing into figures she recognized from her studies. There, that was FDR, peering forward as if aware, even now, of his impact. A younger aide stood beside him, tension lining his face, anxiously shifting from foot to foot as he consulted a map. Their eyes were deep wells of untold stories. "Guide us," Rebecca breathed, her voice strained with urgency. She did not know if she was speaking to the ghosts or invoking something deeper within herself. What is it that remains unsaid? In that moment, the air sparked with energy. A wave of chilling revelations surged through her. She felt deep sorrow tied into their silence at their hopes, their regrets swirling together, and suddenly she understood. These leaders were not just figures in a history book. They were humanity laid bare, tangled in the burdens of their choices. Visions flooded her senses. The chaos of D-Day, the dread of impending decisions, the crushing weight of command as lives hung in the balance. Rebecca felt her voice catching in her throat. "I will remember," she promised, her resolve hardening. "I will share your stories." The whispers intensified, a cacophony of urgency that rattled her soul. Together, they urged her towards understanding, encouraging her to embrace the stories of sacrifice not as looming shadows, but as a tapestry that formed the advisory of their legacies. It was a collective memory waiting for release, an urgency burning in the air. Hours slipped by in a frenzied blur, illuminated notifications flickering on her devices as they recorded the spectral sounds and whispers of yesteryears. She felt the spirits encircling her, the weight of their presence both comforting and burdensome. Their stories merged into a single thread, the echoes of leadership and its unending complexities. But as the first light of dawn began to creep through the edges of the windows, they began to fade. Rebecca felt the chill give way to warmth, and the shadows retreated, reluctant to leave this vessel of acknowledgement. She reluctantly gathered her equipment, capturing a final look at the room that had bridged the past and present. As she turned to leave, the whispers faded to a soft echo, yet the significance of her night's work lingered both in the air and deep within her spirit. She stepped into the hallway, moonlight fading into dawn through the windows, her heart swelling with purpose. The burdens of history were not hers to bear alone, but they were hers to share. With her recordings in hand and the weight of their sacrifices ingrained in her heart, she resolved to honor those whose stories cried out from the shadows. Indeed, the map room and its nearly forgotten memories wouldn't remain silent any longer. "I promise to remember," she murmured, her voice steady now in the quiet morning stillness, echoing back into the very heart of the map room. Each step felt purposeful as she exited, her spirit buoyed by the knowledge that she would unveil the shadows lurking in the corners of history, shedding light where darkness had lingered too long. The map room had borne witness to many pivotal moments in history, but it also held an enduring secret, one that spoke to all who dared to listen after hours. Through layers of strategy and leadership, the echoes of those who came before lived on not as mere phantoms haunting the halls, but as guardians of their own stories woven deep into the fabric of time. The spirits tethered within the map room reflected the bittersweet reality of decisions made in the heat of uncertainty, decisions carrying with them the weight and promise of a future in flux. As generations confronted their own battles, they were guided by the resolute echoes of commanders, aides, and strategists long gone, still tethered to their own legacies of choice. Rebecca Hughes stepped into the bright light of day outside the White House. With a renewed fire flickering within her, emboldened by her experience, she felt an overwhelming connection to the past, a link to all those who had fought not just on the battlefield but within the walls of leadership. It was a pursuit of remembrance and storytelling, and it was crucial. She knew she would share the haunting tales of the map room, from the flickering shadows of doubt experienced by leaders to the weight of decisions made against the backdrop of world events. Each story would serve as a beacon, a reminder of the sacrifices endured in the pursuit of clarity and peace. The whispers could subside, but their message would resound loudly as an imperative to reflect, to remember, and ultimately, to honor the brave souls who paved the way toward a united future. The map room would stand, quietly witnessing the ebb and flow of time, as its echoes continued to resonate, reminding all who entered of the responsibilities that accompany power. With a mix of unease and enchantment, she set forth, intent on ensuring that those images of history would never fade. The legacies carried by the spirits of the map room would remain alive in memories and histories vibrant, awaiting the touch of rediscovery, compelling all of humanity to listen and learn from the lessons whispered through generations. If you enjoyed the tale shared today, remember to like, share, and subscribe to Ghost Stories of the Battles, as we continue to shed light on the unseen, exploring the shadows of history's struggle. In the dim recesses of the White House map room, a cavalcade of shadows flits between the moments of decision and consequence. The spirits of leaders, aides, and soldiers hover just shy of the light, entangled in a web of choices crafted long ago. Their transitions whispers of wisdom intertwining with unshakable regret reflect the human cost of command and the haunting echoes that persist beyond their original contexts. As we close our exploration of the map room, we are left with a resonating truth. History is not a static collection of dates and events, but a living entity that pulsates beneath the surface of our awareness. The choices made in this hallowed space reverberated through time, affecting not just the course of World War II, but shaping the very fabric of American identity. The tales we've shared unveil the importance of remembrance how history's ghosts linger, urging us to recognize their sacrifices and learn from their struggles. In the case of the historian who unearthed the personal letters, the oppressive weight of fear and doubt was palpable. Each word revealed the human side of leadership, a reality that is often overshadowed by the grand narratives crafted in the annals of history. Their revelation, a quiet resolve to honor those who navigated uncertainty, echoes out to us as a challenge in the present, to illuminate the voices that history might otherwise silence. Then we witnessed the naval aide, ensnared by the spectral shifts of strategy unfolding around him, grappling with moral dilemmas that transcended the very fabric of the war effort. His experience in that critical moment reminds us of the confusion and urgency that accompany the burden of decision-making in times of conflict. The phantoms of past leaders shared their wisdom not in direct counsel, but through the charged atmosphere and the gripping choices, he faced a tangible reflection of the weight carried by all who tread the path of leadership. The junior officer, immersed in contemplation after the great loss of FDR, found the room's maps not merely documents of war, but living artifacts teeming with the potential of what could have been. The shadows of leaders past served as guides, beckoning him to remember that the consequences of leadership are eternal, shaping destiny in ways we may only begin to understand. His ultimate determination to carry forth the lessons learned becomes a torch passed through history, an act of reverence to the struggle of those who came before. Finally, the curious researcher, drawn to the secrets of this room after hours, learned that the past does not lie quietly behind closed doors. History seems to pulse with life, beckoning those who dare to confront its mysteries. Each ghostly encounter serves as a reminder that the burdens of yesterday are not merely relics, but present forces, continuously guiding our understanding and decisions today. As we reflect upon these narratives, we are compelled to honor not only the decisions made within these walls, but also the enduring spirits attached to them. Each tale challenges us to acknowledge the intertwining paths of sacrifice, remembrance, and leadership that form our shared heritage. So, as we draw this exploration to a close, let us carry the stories of the map room with us. May they inspire a deeper appreciation for the leaders and the legacies they left behind, unequivocally intertwined in a cycle of decisions that will forever shape our collective consciousness. If these tales have ignited your imagination, we invite you to like, share, and subscribe to Ghost Stories of the Battles. Together, let us continue to unearth the shadows of history's unseen struggles, forever illuminated by the lessons they impart.